It was a day she had been waiting for, a moment she had dreamed about for weeks. The crowd was buzzing with excitement, people standing shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fixed on the entrance, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Among them was a young girl, her hands clutching a small gift, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had been standing in line for hours, braving the heat, the noise, and the endless shuffling of feet, just for the chance to meet Barron Trump. She wasn't sure if she would even get the opportunity to say a few words to him, but that didn't stop her from hoping. For most people, it was just another high-profile event, another appearance by someone in the public eye. But for this girl, it was different. This was personal. She had followed Barron's journey from afar, admired his quiet demeanor, his reserved but respectful presence. While the world often focused on his last name, she saw something beyond that, a young man who carried himself with grace. Despite the attention and pressure, the line inched forward, and she could feel her nerves building. She adjusted the gift in her hands, smoothing the edges of the wrapping paper, making sure everything looked perfect. It wasn't anything extravagant, just something small but meaningful. Something she hoped would let him know how much she admired him. The closer she got, the more real it became. She could hear the chatter of people ahead of her as they finally got their turn. See the way Barron greeted each person with a polite nod, a friendly smile. He was tall, even taller in person, and carried himself with a kind of quiet confidence that made it hard to look away. And then suddenly, it was her turn. Her breath caught in her throat as she stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. As she held out the gift, she had planned out exactly what she would say, rehearsed it over and over in her mind. But now, standing face to face with him, all of those words seemed to disappear. Would he notice her? Would he accept her gift? Would he say something that she would remember forever? What Barron did next left everyone around them completely stunned. It wasn't just a simple greeting, not just the usual handshake or polite thank you. It was something unexpected, something that no one in the crowd had anticipated. And in that moment, as the cameras flashed and the whispers spread through the crowd, the young girl realized this was more than just a meeting. This was a moment she would never forget. The world seemed to slow down for a moment as the young girl stood there, face to face with Barron Trump. Her heart pounded so loudly, she was sure he could hear it. She hadn't expected to feel this nervous. But now that she was here, her hands shook slightly as she extended the small gift toward him. Barron looked at her, then at the gift. For a brief second, there was silence. Just the hum of the crowd. Behind them, the flashing of cameras, the distant murmurs of people waiting for their turn. And then, something unexpected happened. Instead of just taking the gift with a polite nod and moving on, Barron paused. He tilted his head slightly, as if he could sense that this moment meant more to her than just a simple meet and greet. His expression softened, and then, in a move that caught even the security personnel off guard, he reached out, not just for the gift, but for a real, genuine interaction. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice calm and kind. The girl barely managed to get the words out. "Emily," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Barron took the gift carefully, as if it was something fragile, something important. He didn't just toss it aside or hand it off to someone else, like so many public figures might have. Instead, he looked down at it, taking in the neat wrapping, the small details she had put effort into. It wasn't an expensive gift. Emily didn't have much to give, but it was something personal, something she had made herself. The people around them started to take notice. Whispers spread through the crowd. Why was he taking his time? Why wasn't he just moving on like everyone expected? Emily's hands gripped each other nervously as she tried to explain. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Not just for being here, but for everything. For being someone that people like me can look up to. Barron's eyes met hers, and for the first time, Emily saw something beyond the cameras and the flashing lights. She saw someone who understood what it was like to be seen, but not always heard. To be watched, but not always known. But just as the moment started to settle, something shifted. A commotion rippled through the crowd, and suddenly, people were pushing forward, eager to get closer. The security team quickly moved in, their voices firm but controlled, trying to maintain order. Emily felt herself being nudged to the side as people jostled forward. Her moment was slipping away, disappearing into the chaos of the event. She had gotten farther than she ever thought she would. But now, she was about to be lost in the crowd. Again. That's when Barron did something no one expected. Instead of letting her fade away into the sea of people, he made a decision. One that would change everything in that moment. He stepped slightly to the side, creating space between himself and the growing crowd. And then, with a small but unmistakable gesture, he motioned for Emily to step forward again. The security team hesitated for a split second, but Barron gave them a quiet nod, signaling that it was okay. Emily couldn't believe what was happening. For a second, she thought maybe she had imagined it, that maybe the overwhelming energy of the moment was playing tricks on her. But no, he was really looking at her, really waiting. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward once more, this time standing right next to him. She wasn't just another fan in the crowd now. She was part of something bigger, something more personal. But why? Why had he chosen to give her that moment when he could have easily moved on? As she stood there, she noticed something shift in his expression, something that told her this wasn't just about her. There was a deeper reason behind his actions, something unspoken, something that connected them in a way she didn't yet understand. And as the crowd around them grew restless, eager to see what would happen next, Emily realized that this moment was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Emily stood there, heart racing, unsure of what to do next. The crowd was still buzzing, people pushing forward, eager for their own moments with Barron Trump. But somehow, against all expectations, he had chosen to give this moment to her. Barron turned slightly toward her, still holding the gift she had given him. He looked down at it once more, before carefully unwrapping it. Emily watched nervously, her fingers gripping the edge of her jacket, as she waited to see his reaction. It wasn't much, just a small handmade bracelet with a simple but meaningful message woven into the design. She had spent days making it, choosing the colors carefully, hoping he would appreciate the thought behind it. When Barron finally saw what was inside, something in his face changed. His usual reserved expression softened even more, and for the first time that day, he seemed genuinely surprised. He ran his fingers over the bracelet, reading the words stitched into it. "Stay true to yourself." For a moment, he didn't say anything. The noise of the crowd faded into the background, and it was just the two of them in that brief, unexpected connection. Then, instead of just saying a polite thank you, Barron did something that left Emily completely stunned. He slid the bracelet onto his wrist, right there, in front of everyone. He didn't just accept the gift, he wore it, showing her in the most direct way possible that he truly appreciated it. Emily's eyes widened, and she felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected that. She had only wanted to give him something meaningful, something to remind him that he had people who believed in him. But for him to actually wear it, it was more than she could have hoped for. The people around them noticed, and soon, whispers turned into gasps. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment, but Barron didn't seem to care about the attention. He simply turned back to Emily and spoke in a voice just loud enough for her to hear over the crowd. "This means a lot," he said sincerely. "More than you know." Emily felt tears well up in her eyes, but she blinked them back, not wanting to lose the moment. She had spent so much time looking up to him from afar, thinking of him as someone untouchable, someone distant. But standing here now, she realized something. He wasn't just the son of a former president or a public figure in the spotlight. He was just a person, like her, navigating life in his own way, trying to stay true to himself. Security was starting to move things along, gently guiding the next person forward. Emily knew her time was almost up, but before she stepped away, Barron did one last thing. He reached out and gave her a small but genuine handshake, one that wasn't rushed or forced, but real. "Thank you, Emily," he said, his voice steady. And just like that, the moment was over. Emily stepped back into the crowd, still trying to process everything that had just happened. She felt the people around her moving, talking, whispering about what they had just seen. But for her, none of that mattered. What mattered was that she had come here hoping for just a second of his time and had walked away with something far more meaningful. As she made her way out of the event, she glanced back one last time. Barron was still greeting people, still carrying himself with the quiet grace she had always admired. But now there was something different. On his wrist, among whatever else he might have been wearing, was her bracelet, a small but powerful reminder that even in the biggest crowds, even in the loudest moments, real connections was still possible. Emily smiled to herself, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. She had gotten her moment, but more than that, she had made a difference, even if just in a small way, and that she realized was more than enough.